Right, good morning, everyone. Today we'll begin a new, here we go. Good morning, good morning. Today we'll begin a new Hasidic discourse. Last week we finished um, two essays from the previous, from this week's Torah portion, Parshas Kitavo. And there's a few more, but they're long. So let's begin with something that's equally timely and important and vital to us, and then which we're going to read about next week. But actually, we're going to read about it in Mincha of the Shabbat, namely Parshat Nitzavim. Nitzavim. So this week's Torah portion, called Parshat Kitavo, it has in it 98 curses. 98 curses that await the Jewish people if they don't do what God wants. And they're pretty sinister, pretty severe. And if you go through, you see that, in fact, God has not passed over even one of these curses for the Jewish people. And that we've received them all with Holocausts and the tragedies that have befallen the Jewish people are seem to just get worse and worse in some ways. And Lubavitcher Rebbe assured us that it's never going to happen again. It's not going to happen again, even though it could happen again. I mean, as far as nature goes, the world anti-Semitism is no less now than it was certainly in Nazi Germany. I mean, in Nazi Germany, the Jews really got along really good with the Germans. Before the war, there was, that's where the Reform Jewish movement, the idea came from, because of their love and admiration and identification with the German culture and the German ways. I mean, the whole thing began in Germany. So the Jews got along really good until all of a sudden, just popped up. Someone said, "Hey, let's kill the Jews." Everyone said, "Oh, that's a pretty good idea." So they just did. So they asked the Lubavitcher Rebbe, could it happen again? And the Rebbe said, in one moment it happened, but it won't. It won't. The Jews have already had enough problems and troubles, including the troubles they make for themselves. And so there won't be another Holocaust. But nevertheless, they're the Jews are sort of trying their best that they can to encourage one. You see, in Israel, just we got the worst government in the world, and just God protects us. God protects us. The Arabs are, we give land away to our enemies, and we give them guns, and we give them encouragement and legitimize them, legitimacy. Oh, that's the word. We say they have got a good point, and we're trying to do our best, and we would like to give them more, but we can't. Anyway, so God protects us. So you don't have to worry about it. God is definitely protecting us. No doubt about it. I mean, we can't jump off of mountains or something like that, but nevertheless, God is protecting us. Okay, but so it says even more that this week's Torah portion is the 98 curses. And God assures us that he will never leave the Jewish people and never destroy the Jewish people, God forbid. He will never abandon the Jewish people, right? He'll never change his connection with the Jewish people. Never, the Torah will never change them. But nevertheless, here we have a whole Torah portion. This week's Torah portion, next week's Torah portion is Atem Nitzavim. Despite all of the curses that you just heard, and that's in addition to the 49 curses which were in the end of the book of Leviticus and Bechukotai, all those curses added up together. Nevertheless, Atem Nitzavim, you're standing. You Jewish people are standing. It's not just you're existing and you're hiding and they won't find you. You are standing firmly for everyone to see. The Jewish people are here because our job is to educate the whole world what God is. That's our job. So what are we supposed to tell them? So this is what we're learning, Hasidut. What is God? Here we go. So this is next week's Torah reading, but we read it in Mincha also. Let's go. Hine. Okay, that's Atem Nitzavim And Moses says to the Jews, you are standing, Ayom, all of you, today, Kulachem, all of you. You are standing today, all of you. Let me get my pointer over here. In a Parsha Zu, this Torah portion, we're going to read next week, right? It's Korin Net La'olam. We always read Kodem Rosh Hashanah before Rosh Hashanah. Omer Rumaz, and this is hinted at, just a little bit bigger. Omer Rumaz, and it is hinted at move this thing up here. Bamilat in the word Hayom, during Hayom, that the word Hayom always refers to Rosh Hashanah. You see the word Hayom, usually it refers to Rosh Hashanah. In addition to the fact that it refers to, like we just finished learning so beautifully yesterday in the Devar Malchut, it refers to today, whatever day you are right now. The Jewish people are standing no matter when. Key. Okay. Nevertheless, here it is referring to, in addition to referring to right now, because the Torah is always relevant right now, like God is creating the world right now. So now is the most important time. Refers to Rosh Hashanah. It says about Rosh Hashanah in Psalms, this is the day of the beginning of your deeds, God. Zikaron, it is a remembrance for the first day. What happened on the first day? There's a lot of different explanations on this, but the first day, God started creating the world for free. And this day, Rosh Hashanah, as we have to serve God, man was created. He's got to serve God, but that's also for free. In other words, Rosh Hashanah is the day of judgment, but it's a remembrance for the first day. What's the first day? That God did everything on his own from pure love. And so it's the same thing now. The judgment comes from pure love. This is Jewish faith, right? We're talking about faith over here. There was no scientific proof that God created the world, and there was no witnesses over there that God created the world. Man was only created on the sixth day of creation, and he was a witness that God exists and God created him, and it didn't help because just a few hours afterwards, he ate the tree. Did what God said not to do. Okay, hine. Shekol nitzutze neshamos. That what happens on Rosh Hashanah? All the sparks of the souls, the life force, which is in every soul, even deeper, the purpose of every soul. Right? We're alive because everything in the world has a purpose. God is creating everything. Everything has a purpose. Everything has a meaning. And every person has a meaning. That's the nitzut, that's the spark. And the Jewish people, they have a special meaning because the whole world is their responsibility to educate the whole world. So all the sparks, all these points of life, meaning, and all the souls in Nitzavim are standing, umit alim, and elevate the makorim to their source of Rishon B'Yom Zeh on this day. And what is our source? Our source is like we say, our responsibility. Why God is creating us in order to fix up the world. So we're connect back to that fact, which is called now. Why God is creating me right now. Rosh Hashanah, suddenly we realize that Ad Lifnei Hashem, that we are before God. And we talked about this in the previous Maimer. Lifnei also means inside. Who's standing in front of God? Roshechem, Shivtechem, the heads of the tribes, and to Chotei Veitzecha, to 10 different types of Jews it lists over there. From the heads of the tribes, the highest, most talented Jews, Ad Chotei Veitzecha, to the woodcutters, Ad Shoev Memecha, until those who just, all they know how to do is just draw water. They have this water with a bucket. That's what they're telling. What does it mean? Prata Kasuv, the Torah enumerates Eser Madrego, 10 different types of Jews. These are 10 different levels. Shekamo sheyesh Eser Madrego, just like there are 10 levels of the soul, namely 3 aspects of intellect and 7 aspects of emotions. What we talked about, the 10 sfirot. Kach, so also, call Yisrael, all the Jewish people, him koma shlemo, they are koma echad shlemo, this like one big man. one big person. But kololot, nishmoteim, and all of their souls altogether. I mean, what does it mean? 10 levels. Every human being in the world is different. Every human being is different. Every human being has a little bit of a, for no other reason, every human being is in a different place. So just for that, every human being has a different perspective on the world, looking at it for a different view from a different place. But in addition to that, everybody's fingerprints are different. Everybody's personality is different. The Jews are much more so, right? The Jews are general souls. Nevertheless, there's 10 general levels of these type of souls. And they correspond to the 10 aspects of the soul. Because the Jewish people are like one big person. That's called Knesset Yisrael. That's called the gathering of the Jews. And then it's divided to 10 different levels. Now, every Jew is exactly the same, and that we're Jews, like every human being is exactly the same. And the fact that we're humans. Right? But the Jewish people, they're here to teach everybody what it means to be a human. So in some ways, we're the, how do you say, public servants. We're the teachers of mankind. So there's, generally speaking, there's 10 different categories of Jews. And Rosh HaShanna, mitalim, all madrigos, all these different levels we're talking about, even the most simple level of Jew, the most untalented and insensitive type of Jew, ad until shoev memecha, but the least talented as far as godliness goes. We're not talking about, it could be a nuclear physicist or a brain surgeon or whatever. But as far as Judaism goes, he's like a baby. Right? All he can do is like draw water. He puts on tefillin, let's say, maybe, or maybe even not that. He just knows that he's a Jew. Nevertheless, all of these different levels raise up she'em bechinas u'madrigas, even the, I'm sorry, even the water drawers, the wood choppers, and those who draw water, that they also contribute, but they are the lowest of all of the levels. Liyot kulam mitalim, and all of them elevate lamaila to their source, b'makar chutz, from where they are called out from. I just skipped this parenthesis because it just so sends us to different places to look for more information. I mean, all the Rebbes of Chabad, they knew everything. They knew all of the Torah. And not only that, they knew all the Torah, they knew all of their speeches and the speeches that were given by all the previous Rebbes. They knew everything, just everything was in front of them. They knew everything by heart. Okay, V'zeu, that's what it means. So he's bringing all these sources from Liot Kulam Mitalim, that on Rosh HaShanna, all of these souls, including me and you, elevate themselves b'mokum chutzvan, to their source. V'zeu, that's what it means. Vayehi b'Yeshua Melech b'Yisasef Rosh Hayam Yachad Shiftei Yisrael. It's a sentence in what is it? Was it Zota Bracha? And we're going to get to it in a couple of weeks. And it was in Yeshurun Melech, there was, and Yeshurun means the Jewish people, a king. B'Yisasef Rosh Hayam, when they're gathered, the heads of the people together, all the tribes of Israel. What does it mean, Pirish? Shekulam, all of them on Rosh HaShanna, they gathered together. Liot mitlachdim leke'echad, they're unified as one. Like we've said so many times, even in the middle of the year, any day of the year, you go to a person, a Jew, and you say, "Excuse me, are you Jewish?" But if the guy's Jewish, he'll say, "None of your business." Right? A non-religious Jew, none of your business. What do you care, right? Go to a non-Jew and say, "No, I'm not Jewish. I'm not Jewish, not Jewish." Right? Like I said so many times before, some Israelis will say that, right? Because just to get rid of you. Other Jews in the world, they won't do that. But Israelis, they know I'm Jewish. I'm not, right? Israeli, that's okay. But nevertheless, they themselves, like I said a lot of times before, if you say you're a terrible Jew, you're a Jew, he'll say, "Who are you? You're telling me I'm a terrible Jew." Right? Go to a non-Jew and say you're not a good Catholic, you're not a good Muslim, you're not a good this. He'll say, "Okay, to say what you want." So who are you? Right? You go to a Jew, I'm not a good Jew. You're the one to judge him. In other words, it's important to every Jew somehow or other that he's a Jew. And that is all unified. This Jewish identity is all unified and goes up to its source, whether you know it or not, on Rosh HaShanna. Kizeo klal gadol, because this is a general principle, the call, the asi, everything that comes, Aramaic, misitra de kedusha, from the side of holiness, from the side of connected to the Creator, hu bebechinas niut sofim b'techilatan, there is the top is found in the bottom. In other words, where is the highest levels of godliness found? Specifically in the lowest levels. She'ein lo bechinas rosh v'sof, there is no head or end. But sometimes you'll find Jews that are distant as far as you can get from Judaism, and they will give their lives for Judaism. Specifically, they will. And big rabbis who are big teachers, they'll say, listen, I got so many pupils, I have so many this, so I'll bow down to the, to this idol for a second, I'll make a deal. Who bechinas agulim, this is what, but holiness is found, the highest is found in the lowest, and the lowest can be found in the highest. Or in simple language, if you're dealing with God of Israel, then no matter how much sins you've done, and no matter how low you are, in one instant, you can get to the top, because the top is connected to the bottom is connected to the top. This is drawn from a level which is called soviv, called olmin, a level of godliness which is, so to speak, surrounds all worlds, all levels, all definitions. And therefore the rabbis say, Havi shafal ruach, therefore it says that you should be humble in front of everyone. Why should I be humble in front of everybody? There's Jews that are big sinners. And some people say even in front of a non-Jew, you have to be humble. First of all, you have to be humble in front of everybody because everyone has something to teach you. You have to learn who is wise, someone who learns from everybody. You have to be humble in front of everybody because not only that, you have to be humble because everybody has something to learn from you. You, so to speak, are in the world only in order to contribute what you have. So if this person wasn't here, you wouldn't be in the world. You have something to contribute to him. Nevertheless, you have to be humble in front of everybody. Here we're talking about the Jewish people. Why should I be humble in front of, who knows, a big sinner of the Jewish people? A Jew has changed his religion, God forbid. Why? I humble in front of him. Why? Because everybody has bechinas u'medregas, a level she'en bechavero, that is not in anyone else. And everyone needs everybody else. Everyone is attached to the essence, and they're attached to the essence in a different way. Nimsa Shul comes out. There is an advantage, some sort of a uniqueness in every single one. Every person is better than everybody else. And everybody else needs him. So you can say, hey, everybody needs me. I'm very important. Everyone needs me. You say, yeah, but you need everyone. You need everyone. Everyone in the world, they're just lacking one thing. They're lacking one thing from you. One thing from you they're lacking. So they have a debt to you, let's say $1. But you owe to everyone. You're missing what everybody else has in the world. So your debt, true, it's spread around 8 billion people, but your debt is 8 billion, right? They owe you $1 and you owe $8 billion. So you're of a bigger debtor than them, but you do have something that nobody else has. And here especially he's talking about the Jewish people. It's true about everybody, but especially the Jewish people. Every Jew has a tremendous responsibility, and every Jew has some way to fill this responsibility that nobody has, and therefore each one needs the other one in order to do this job. Like a person, that he's one, how do you say, one stance, what do they call it? One body, one figure. The Rosh Raglaim, he's got a head and he's got feet. Even though the feet are the end and the lowest level, and the head is the highest level. And the head is better than the feet. Right? The feet can't see, the feet can't hear, the feet can't feel. But you can't tell from a person, maybe the reflexologues can tell from your feet what you're thinking. I don't know, maybe. I mean, there certainly is every part of a person's body contains everything somehow or other. They get DNA nowadays from a person's whatever it is, his toenail. So you get, but nevertheless, the fact of the matter is that it's very difficult to tell what a person is thinking from his foot. Right? You look at a person's eyes, you can tell a little bit about the personality of the person, how he reacts. And the feet, you can't. The feet are human feet are not that different from animal feet. Right? Except with the humans, they walk on the flat of their foot, and horses will walk on their toes, whatever, on their nails, whatever, however they walk. Let's say a human foot and a dog's foot. Right? Essentially, there's not much difference between them. What's the difference? A different shape, but it's still a foot. Nevertheless, in one way, in some ways, the feet are even better than the head. Because you can walk with them. And they stand up the body. And with the head too. So the feet elevate the head. And also, if there is, sometimes you have a pain, person has a pain in his head, is makizim. They don't do this anymore. Makizim, dam, baraglaim. They take blood, or you can give a shot. You give a shot in the person's foot, and that nearby the person gets healed. The people that do reflexology, what's it called? And they work on the feet, and it heals the whole body. It heals the whole body. I mean, I didn't work on me, but it works on other people.
Cortisone shots also help.
Definitely does. What?
Cortisone shots.
Yeah, but okay, you go. And the point is that wherever the shots are given, they can be given also in the foot. So sometimes the foot can heal the head. So it comes out that a person's head is not complete without his feet. And a person can be the biggest genius, the biggest whatever. If he has a pain in his foot or his foot doesn't work, so something's missing in the person. So a person depends on the lowest part of his body, the lowest part of his least personal part of his body, the most impersonal part of his body, the feet or the bottom of the feet or his heels, is part of the shlemus of the person, part of the completion of a person. All these are the same thing the Jewish people. All the Jewish people, kol ma'achaz shalema, is one body, one unit. So it comes out afilu mi shemachashev dato, that he thinks shehu bechinas rosh, that he's the head legabi chavero, higher than anybody else. Hari ein lo shlemos. The fact is that he's missing something. Right? He's handicapped beli chavero, without his friend. And so if a Jew thinks that he's better than any other Jew, then something's missing in his soul, that only that person can complete it. By means of this, by means of this, you will be surrendered and you will be humble before your friend. We believe Yimsa Adam without finding the person Rosh Vasof. I remember there was this rocket. Remember, it was a terrible tragedy. This rocket ship came. There was this fellow Elon. What was his name? Anyway, this Israeli astronaut. They sent the Israeli astronaut up, and everybody was this. And when they came back, the entry and the thing blew up. The rocket ship, the entry thing blew up, and they somehow or other made a big investigation, and they revealed it was one little bolt that had not been properly secured or something like that. And that's what did the whole business. So it ended up that all of the technology and the genius ideas was how do you say, depended on one little bolt, which how long have bolts been around? I don't know. 100 to 500 years. I don't know how long bolts have been around, but however long they've been working with iron, bolts have been around. And it's the most simple thing to make a little bolt. Maybe this is a more complicated bolt. But anyway, so we're talking about the head depends even on the foot. So therefore, al yadei bittul zeh, by means of this surrender, by means of, how do you say, doing what's right, fitting in. So you could be that one little bolt. And what's a bolt in a rocket ship? You can do the same bolt in your bicycle or something like that. And it's such a big deal. For a rocket ship, yes, it is a big deal. Same thing as every Jew, that he might think, I'm dispensable, I'm not. And the fact is, it's not just every Jew, but every human being. No human being is dispensable. Every human being is unique. Every human being has something to contribute. But the Jewish people is in a big way. It's in a mega way. Because they're the teachers. They're supposed to be by means of this, Yisachtu Lasha'aret Yehudo, you will unite to that there can be a resting place, Yehudo, of God's oneness. Shemisitra the Kedusha, from the side of holiness, Bli Rosh V'Sof, without any head or end. So this is one way of finding unity, even for an atheist. Right? A person, an atheist, the best way to find unity is to say, listen, I'm just a creation. God is just creating me. He's creating everybody. The fact that I'm more intelligent than everyone, and I'm more rich than everyone, and more popular than everyone, more powerful and more successful, this is all just miracles from God. But that also brings to humility. You just know that everything I have is a gift from God, and I have to use it the way that God wants me to. So I'm not thinking about I'm better than him or he's better than me. But here's a way for even atheists. Everyone is special. Everyone is unique. Everyone has something to give and to receive from everyone else that no one else has. And so you see this, then that's the side of holy. That already is a vessel for holiness, that there's no top and there's no bottom. Which is not, I mean, in the end, that always breaks down. If you don't bring God, the creator, into the picture somehow or other, so all these ideas, I mean, basically, this is like the ideas of communism and of Napoleon, that's what they, liberty, fraternity, equality. There wasn't it for Napoleon's thing, liberty, fraternity, equality. Everyone is equal. That's the same thing as communism. Communism comes from the word common. Everyone's equal. Just some people equal more than other people. Everyone's supposed to be equal. So all these ideas are very good. But if you leave the idea of God out, naturally, people feel themselves more than they feel others. And if you don't bring somehow or there's some sort of a superior power or force or something into the whole picture, so it's very, very likely to fall into total chaos. Not to say that if you believe in a superior, it won't fall into chaos. It certainly can. And we said that that's what happened with the golden calf and everybody saw God. But nevertheless, it's less likely, let's say. The chances are 10% less than it'll fall into chaos if you believe in God than not. The other 90% you have to work on yourself. But still, that 10% is very helpful. That's the idea of Rosh HaShanna. Rosh HaShanna is you feel that all of the Jewish people are one and that you're standing in front of God. Masha Enkim, which is not the case, the person that thinks in himself nifra, that he's different, he's better in his qualities in regarding other people, but also Rosh, and he's the head. The Sof, and other people are the end, and they are different from me. Harihu nofel ba'alma de pruda, he falls in the world of separation, which is called Sitra Achra, the other side. And that's natural to humanity. Natural humanity, you can bring all the systems with the communism, with the wherever you want, all this system. But if a person doesn't feel the truth, namely that we're being created, so that's always going to fall into, I mean, just look at all the communist systems. It's really quite amazing. I mean, they killed millions. I just read yesterday with this guy, Pol Pot, in Cambodia. He killed, they say, like 2 million, 3 million people. And then, the Mao Zedong, and he killed, they say, about 100 million people. They're just like flies. Because you can't make these systems work if you don't really have some connection to the value of life itself, that life itself is precious. Okay, that's in what we believe. Okay, here we go. So that's what the Rebbe is teaching. Rebbe is teaching that if you have a connection to the creator, then you can start to see that everyone's created different, and that some people are created with talents and with abilities and others not, and they're all essential parts of the same unity, the same body. Hine, Rosh Hashanah, this is the day of tshuva, of return. Shekalolos neshamas Yisrael, that all the Jewish souls, Rosh Hashanah is a Jewish holiday, even though it says that God judges the whole world. But nevertheless, the whole thing is the hand of the Jews. All the Jewish people, Teshuvna, will return l'makom, to the source. Vishorsha, like a human being returns to consciousness. A person is unconscious, and he returns to consciousness. He just returns to who he is. Same thing, the Jewish people, they returned to consciousness. They were asleep the whole year. That's what it means, when you gather the heads of the people, Rosh, the heads of the people. This is thought. And Rosh this is the thought, this is the level of the thought of all of the Jewish people. Is everybody. Rosh is the thoughts of all the Jews that gathered together, Alma de Pruda, instead of being separated, they're all gathered, Isasef, they're all gathered, Shenaflu Machshavtam, Liod Ze Poneh Lakan, that they're the whole rest of the year, everybody is separated from everybody else, everyone's thinking about themselves. And it's called what's called a public domain, Reshuta Rabim. And on Rosh HaShanna, Naasim Reshuta Yachid, it becomes a private domain. The Yehuda Yisbrech to God's private ownership. Same thing like we say when we say Shema Yisrael every day, twice a day, 4 times a day. You say it in morning prayers, and then you say before you go to sleep. Shema, the word Shema, one of the meanings of Shema is to understand. Another meaning is to gather. Shema means to asifa. Like it says, Vayishama Shaul, like it says that King Saul gathered the people. This is in a general way. That's a general way. That's what happens on Rosh HaShanna. That's the holiday that's coming. All of the Jewish people suddenly are awakened to their singular source, derech prat, but that's in a general way. But in an individual way, how it is in each and every single Jew, what exactly is this returning back to consciousness, returning back to God? Why specifically on this day, Rosh Hashanah, how we say Shema Yisrael twice a day. It's a commandment to say twice a day. Shema means to gather together. We say twice a day. What's the big special thing about Rosh Hashanah? That explains the next sentence. It says, La'avacha babrit. That's in this next week's Torah portion, right? It says, Atem nitzavim kulchem hayom lifnei Hashem Elokeichem. And it says, La'avracha babrit, to pass you through a covenant. Okay, what does it mean pass? How do they used to make a covenant? What's a covenant, first of all? It's the deepest agreement between two people that there can be is what's called a covenant. Who uses such a word now? But nevertheless, that's what it is, a covenant. You make an agreement, you can make a promise, you can make an oath, but a covenant is something even deeper than all that. A covenant, an oath, you can break an oath. You're not supposed to break it, but a covenant, you can't break a covenant. A covenant is a eternal agreement. If it's broken, then it's a sign it wasn't really a covenant, a brit. A brit means like this, that God on Rosh Hashanah makes a brit, makes a covenant, a deep unification with the Jews. Inyan is like this. Like two people, that they love each other. They're best of friends. Shekortim brit, that they make a covenant between them. Shalot tifsok avosam, that their love will not stop. She'ilu hayadavar sha'ava taluya, because if there was anything that their love depended on, kayam la'ad, forever, lo yatzarechim, they wouldn't have to make a covenant. El lafi sheyirim, because they're afraid, shema yibotlo adavar, maybe it'll go away. The botlo avosam, that love will go away. Oh, maybe Shema Yigrom is a Menia Mibachutz, maybe from outside. They created the Brit by means of making a covenant to Avasam, Ava Nitzrit, their love will be an eternal love, Baltimut, Olam, forever. Ba'ad Lo Yifradu, nothing can possibly separate them. Ideally, this used to be the way that a wedding was. A wedding was supposed to be a Brit. It was supposed to be. Why was it supposed to be a Brit? Because you made an oath to God that according to God, I am, but we are meant for each other. And okay, sometimes a person can get married and they can make and they were fooled, right? The woman didn't she fooled him. right? She fooled him. She really acted nice. She really was not nice. They said, okay, it was on false pretenses. I didn't understand what was going on. But people who genuinely love each other, two good friends, right? Two good friends, especially because we're talking about two separate people. So two good friends, and they're best. They love each other, but they know how the world goes, and they know that it could be that someday that they'll be separated. So they make a covenant with each other that they will never disappoint one another. They'll be loyal to one another, give their life, whatever the covenant is that they make. Right? And then even if things turn around, and I hear that Joe, I just made this covenant with him that he changed his religion and he changed his loyalty, and he became a traitor to the country and to the people and to the cause and to the this and that. But I made a covenant with him. So I know that somewhere down deep inside of Joe or whoever it was that I made the covenant with, Joe is not a nice name anymore together. I made it with Shmerel. So I made a covenant with him. And so I know, listen, the reason that he did all these terrible things is because he went temporarily and saying something is wrong. That Shmerel that I knew, that I made the covenant with, he's still there. That's called permanent. That's called a brit. Even if something happens that the reasons for any normal person should stop loving another person, or Gorem is a sina, or something that caused me to hate him, Ava became nevertheless machmas a kritot brit, because I made a covenant. I don't know if there is this such a thing like this anymore, but brit is muchrach liot avosam. They have to love one another forever. Fa'al kol peshaim, like it says, on all sins, tichasa ava covers over this love. The kesher meets this eternal and powerful connection. Lefi, because shaboba brit, because it's coming in a brit, in a covenant. That hit kashut ke'elu nasel basar echad. It's like they made to one person, like one person. Like a person doesn't stop loving himself. If he does, then he's sick, right? It won't stop among another person. A lot of people, even God forbid, that they commit suicide, they do it because they can't stand what's happening to themselves. They can't stand, it's such a bad situation. They figure it'll be better for me if I do this terrible thing. Right? It's a quicker way of thinking, but nevertheless, sometimes the situation of the world brings you to this. If a person makes a firm decision, for instance, makes a brit with life, no matter what happens, I'm going to. People did it in the army. Used to be, I'm loyal to the country. No matter what happens, I am loyal to my country. Right? Some people are loyal to the religion, whatever religion it is. I am loyal to the death. Loyal to the death. Okay, I don't know exactly how much that. I think maybe loyalty to the country is better, but you can't know what's going on inside of a person. Ideally, a brit means that I don't think about myself. When it comes to a relationship with Shmerel, we made a covenant. I don't think about me. I think only about my love for Shmerel. That's all I think about. People come and tell me he did this, and I find it's true, he did that, and it did. Nevertheless, we made a covenant. I know who he really is. Somehow or other, from that deep realization, it wasn't under false pretenses. That deep realization, I know who this person is. I know what he, same thing getting married. A person could say, listen, I understand what marriage is. Marriage means that I'm doing a commandment from God. God wants there to be a family. God wants there to be people not to be alone, to get married. I am doing a commandment. I am getting married to this woman, and I make a vow that I will love her. Love her means I'm going to try to find something good inside of her no matter what. And if I can't find anything good, at least there's the one thing good that I can find, that we're together because God wants us to be together. He wanted us to be together. I mean, sometimes it's also a commandment. You have a commandment that if it's impossible, you can get divorced. But that's only, it says, very, very unusual. Very unusual. So just like a person can't stop loving himself, also a person can't stop loving his friend. And therefore, Nikra Balashin Kritot Brit is called cutting a covenant. Asher Kortu, that God cut a covenant. Why? Because it's like taking, like Abraham made a covenant with God. He took the God told him to take what it was Egel Mishaleshes for Ayel Mishalesh, to take a ram and and a cow and slaughter them and cut them in half and put one half on one side and the other on the other side. And Abraham passed through, so to speak, with God's presence. That's what it says over there. That he passed through with God's presence. He made a covenant with God. And by the way, what was in the covenant? That God said, you're going to be in exile. It's going to be terrible. And that's the covenant. Don't worry, I'm not going to leave you. And Abraham said, don't worry, I'm not going to leave God. But Yavru ben Batarim, they passed through the pieces. Batarim is the pieces. Kolomar, liot shneim ovrim betoch guf echad, because they passed through one body. Liot lachadim. They say just like this calf is not one with the left side without the right side, or the right side, so also not one without you. That's called cutting a covenant. Right? They take something and separate it and show that it's really not separated. The only way it can be alive is when it's together. So also I'm together. That's the covenant that God made with us and we made with God. That's Rosh HaShanna. And you can call him Mashal, like this whole example. That's what God did to us. The Chasiv, like it says, Hine Anochi Korei Brit. God said, I am making a covenant with you. This is after the Jews sinned with the golden calf. Neged Kol Amcha Eseni Flaot. Up in front of all of your people, I'm going to make wondrous things. It says, what type of wondrous things that God did? All the miracles happened before. It says, Pirish Lamaila Minatam, that God elevated, Niflod means to elevate, he elevated the Jews above understanding. That's the Niflot that he did. When did God make this covenant with the Jews? It says, after they sinned with the golden calf, God said, don't worry, I'm going to make a covenant with you, and I'm not going to ever leave you, and I'm going to show you big miracles. What miracles? There were no miracles after that. Splitting of the sea and the 10 plagues and giving the Torah, those were the miracles. That all happened before. It says the miracles is not here is not the word niflot, doesn't mean miracles. It does. It means I will elevate you miraculously. It means elevate the Jewish people. Lamayla miatam v'dad, above any logic. Ukamon, just like Sha'omer David, like King David said to Yonatan. Yonatan was the son of King Saul. And King Saul hated King David. And he justly so, he hated King David, because King David was chosen in secret. He was coronated to be the king by Shmuel, the prophet. He was coronated. And he didn't tell Shaul about it. So Shaul, in any case, Shaul also went out of his mind a little bit, and he went and he hated King David, tried to kill him over and over. And King Saul had a son that was Yonatan. And it said that his soul was connected to David's soul. They had a love, an intense love, which came of niflot avotecha, an intense love that Yonatan was willing to risk his life to David, and that was King Saul tried to kill him because of this. So it was a deep, intense love. That's called a love which is not dependent on anything. Because by means of these 13 attributes of mercy that Moses drew down after the Jews sinned with the golden calf, that God made a new covenant with the Jews. The Kodesh Baruch Hu in Israel, new type of love, eslicha, and mercy. That God said, I will never leave the Jews. And never in the history of the world, before or after, was there such a sin, such a, how do you say, an intentional wanton sin, whatever you want, than as the golden calf. That was like the worst. You know, all the Jewish people knew, it was proved without any doubt that God exists and that God cares for them. God split the sea for them and was giving them bread to eat, and he gave them the Torah, and they all saw God and their souls jumped out of their bodies. They all saw God and they knew God and they felt God. No one questioned God. Questioning God was more ridiculous than, like, questioning, do I have a hand? Right? Can I talk? Guys talking, I doubt that I'm able to speak. And he's speaking. That was less insane than doubting God. Everybody knew God. And nevertheless, God said at Mount Sinai, don't worship anything except for the God who took you out of Egypt. and is creating the world. And they did it. They all worship the golden calf. Can't be any worse than that. And God said, you got to the bottom. That's the worst there can be. You deserve to be destroyed, and I'm not going to destroy you because I love you. I'm making a covenant. This is above any, no matter what sins you're going to do, Jewish people, I'm always going to, and you'll never be able to do a sin like that, like the golden calf, right? And nevertheless, I'm making a covenant with you, and I always will love you. That your sins will not be separated between me and you. That's what happens on Rosh Hashanah. God remembers this tremendous deep love. And we'll continue this tomorrow. The rabbi say, God says, say sentences from the Torah that show that I'm a king, so that I will listen to those sentences and I will rule. I will be your king. And zichronos, and also say sentences from the Torah to show that I remember you, Jewish people, and so that I will remember on Rosh HaShanna. But how? By means of the shofar. The thing that turns the whole system, starts the whole machinery connection between us and God, that's the shofar. Because Rosh HaShanna is the day that God began to create the world. It's a remembrance for the first day. When that was the day, Rosh Hashanah, when God created man. And man said, Hashem Melech, God is the king. And he puts on a garment. Then there was revealed God's kingship. And we're going to talk about this, God willing, tomorrow on Friday. We'll see. Maybe we'll do this. I don't know. Or for sure, we're going to continue next week with this, because this is next week's Torah portion. So we'll see what we learn tomorrow. Let's see how much progress we make in the Devar Malchut. Okay, now let's learn the Devar Malchut with God's help. Anyway, so we learn from here what is the Jewish people, what's God's connection with the Jewish people, and how God put the whole world in the hands of the Jewish people to make everybody whole, to make the whole world connected to the creator of the universe, as we'll talk about more, God willing, in the future. Now let's do the Devar Malchut.